5 of The People's Story. My name's Charlotte and I'm from the Soul Archive. And today, joining me, we have Matt Bolton and Faye Stevenson from London. So thank you so much for joining us and this YouTube programme. So yeah, how are you both doing? Are you okay?
All right.
Yeah, not bad.
Just want to get out.
And getting on.
Like the rest of the world, I guess.
So before we start, I thought it'd be quite good just to tell us a bit of background information on you both, because I know you're not actually both from London. I think you've moved to London. And so, yeah, just tell us a bit more about that.
Ladies first.
I'm from...
Yeah. Well, originally, I'm Yorkshire, South Yorkshire. So, yeah, lived there, I guess, till I was 18, then lived in Leicester for a couple of years, and then, I guess, yeah, I've been living in London for nearly 20 years now. Oh, that went quick. But, yeah, still proper Yorkshire and proud.
And I'm the other side of the Pennines. I'm the white road, I'm the red road.
Yeah, red road.
So I'm from Blackburn originally, and then I went to Huddersfield, and then to Leeds, and then to London. So I've been very grateful that I've kind of experienced quite a lot of that northern soul scene in the north, as well as everything down here as well.
Yeah, so you're a pair of northerners down south. I like that. Yeah, that's great. So let's start with the basics. How did you both find and get into northern soul and soul music? Where did it start for you both?
This is a really good, interesting question, I think. Who wants to go first?
You go first.
Shall I go first? Well, obviously, I guess I grew up Yorkshire, obviously, massive soul heritage there. My mum and dad both into like soul and soul scene and stuff. I was youngest of 3. My brother and sister, obviously, like 8 years older than me, so a bit older, but it was quite an eclectic household, because you had obviously mum and dad playing like soul type music, my sister massively into hip hop, R&B, and my brother massively into house. So I was really lucky to have all that kind of, I guess, black music played around me. And then being an indie kid in mid-90s, probably a similar thing for Matty as well. Going out, you were surrounded by soul music anyway, because clubs were playing like indie, then 60s influenced music, and then they'd be playing like bits of northern in there. So it was always like in your consciousness. So I guess it was just kind of there. Then I guess like you just go off and live your life, going out, listening to loads of different types of music they're into. And then we met, and then I started going out to mental and northern nights, which was great. Yeah, that's been good.
100 Club was the first.
100 Club, yeah. I guess because I was living down in London and I was always here then. So, yeah, started going there. Not bad.
It's a good start.
Yeah.
Oh, so Matt introduced you to the world of all-nighters and the dark side of the scene, I think.
Yeah, totally. Because I guess it's that thing of like, yeah, you wouldn't have probably come across it. And like my mum and dad used to go out to soul nights a lot and stuff, but as a kid I was like, oh, I don't want to be into what my mum and dad are into. I was into like, you know, indie and
Electrons.
Yeah, massive like electro and house kind of thing. So it was like, oh, you know, I don't listen to that. So and then when Matt was like, oh yeah, I'm into northern, I was like, oh yeah, I know like this side of northern and soul and stuff, but never been to like nighters and things. Been to like club nights, but like not nighter nights.
I'm glad you're into it.
Yeah, it's bloody great.
Oh, that's amazing. But that's such a great journey to, you know, to go through all those different music genres and then kind of find, you know, what's your kind of niche type thing. So that's really nice, really, isn't it? So Matt, how did you get into it?
I guess my mum always used to collect Motown records. When she was a kid, she used to buy them off Blackburn Market. And in it, invariably they got handed down to me. But it was always, you know, I distinctly remember being in the car and Motown Gold was always
tapes, all the time.
Massive tapes, do you know what I mean, during big car journeys when I was a kid. But at that point I was never, you know, I always loved it and it was always around in my life. And then I distinctly remember seeing in 45s, and the 45s to me was such a, I think when I look back, it was probably the most exotic thing I'd ever seen. Because I remember when I saw the first Motown record, it was the Map label, and it's got the map on it. And I genuinely thought Motown was a place, because back in Blackburn in the 90s, I didn't know what Detroit was. Do you know what I mean? I've never looked on a map of the States and everything. So to me, that just the label itself, aside from the music, was just a really exotic thing. And then I got into indie music, like most people, like most alternative kids did in the 90s. And again, like Faye said, you know, I distinctly remember things like Soul Limbo being played. You know, so it was always part of it. We were very lucky actually in the 90s, because
stuff like Night and it just all dropped in, wasn't it?
There was still very much a 60s consciousness in like just in general, you know, like whereas there isn't as much today. But I went from that into mod, so I became a little mod kid from about 97 onwards. And then I went to my first soul night, was one of Richard's nights, actually. We knew Richard Stanley's night at the King George's. And I went on my own. I knew nobody else that was into it at the time. I had just no idea.
Did your mum drop you off?
Yeah, my mum dropped me off. My dad picked me up.
How did you just discover that soul night? You know, Richard's, like, where did you come across that?
Well, because we were in Blackburn, and I just saw it in the paper, I think. I either saw it in the paper, or I think it might have been, because when I was back at home, I used to listen to Cellar Full of Song a lot. And I have to say, that was a real, I mean, I do really miss that, actually. But every Sunday, especially after a nighter, when I was living in, like, in Blackburn, I used to listen to that every Sunday morning with Richard. But I distinctly remember sitting down on my own. I don't think anybody talked to me all night, because I hid myself away in a corner. And it's funny because, you know, that was King George's Hall is where I picked my A-level results up, you know. So as a venue, it had completely different connotations for me. And then I got more and more into it, and I really enjoyed it. And I remember going to Tony's all-nighter, but just as I was getting into it. But I think the single distinctive moment for me was when I went to university at 18. And for some reason, a girl that I'd known since I was a kid, almost like sisters, she said, "Oh, this guy." She knew that I was into mod. She knew that I was into mod, and I was really, you know, I was a little fledgling mod, and I was kind of getting into stuff. And she said, "This guy from Portsmouth has done me this tape. Do you want me to send it up?" She's like, "I like it, but I think you really appreciate it." And so, you know, I'm sat in the university halls, and I drop it in the thing, and I press play. And the first record that was on there was Howard Guyon. And that, honestly, I think that singular tape really, really formed my taste in soul. And other things that were on there are kind of like OJ's on there, Forget You was on there.
Clara Ward. Amazing, didn't you?
I genuinely think it's probably one of the, in terms of quality, one of the best tapes I've ever heard. And I wish, and it's funny because a while ago I put a shout out on Soul Source because I wanted to know who did this tape. There was a lot of OK on there, but some really, really interesting things. I think A Whole New Plan was on there.
It's absolutely crazy that we need to find out who made that tape.
At that point. Yeah. And then because I was in Huddersfield, I used to go to Brighouse Ritz every week. First there, last out. And that was a really, really amazing place to be. And alongside that, there were two amazing nights in Leeds that we used to go to. One was Brighton Beach at the Cockpit.
Same in Leicester when I lived there as well, because it had like big indie room, and then it had like a mod rarities room.
Yeah,
played like mix of R&B and Northern.
Yeah, Lee Miller and Gav Needham and
Leeds,
and honestly, for me, that kind of forming my earliest stuff. And what was really great about that, and it was kind of before the times of things like before the internet at all, really, was that you would hear a record and it would just completely electrify you, but you'd no idea who it was, and
or be able to hear it again. So that's what made you go out.
That's it. Yeah, and so there were records that you would hear, you'd be like, "The fuck was that?" But you would never hear it again. you know, and we were really lucky.
If you didn't have time to go up and ask what it was.
Yeah, that's it, because we were too busy dancing, or we were too nervous to ask, you know, what it was.
Yeah, totally. Especially as a young kid with all the DJs and stuff.
So you said you both got into soul music when you was about, like, you know, university time, so you're going 80s, early 20s. So what year was that? Because I'm just trying to, you know, just work out the timeline. So what year was that?
That's telling the age, isn't it?
Well, yours was probably,
so
the 100 Club time was probably.
Yeah, but when I was going to Brighton Beach and stuff, was late 90s, 98 to like 2001.
Yeah, I started going in 97.
So it's quite crazy, because obviously there are obviously the old school generation, the boys who were there like from the beginning, from, you know, and then there's this new generation, which I think I'd class myself in, you know, in the last 10 years, you know, and there's quite actually a small group of young people scattered about who delved into the soul scene, but you're like in the middle, and you're like a generation that no one actually talks about, and actually it's quite vital that we do talk about it. So I'd love to know more information about how, as a young person back then in the 90s, early noughties, how you was treated. Because
I first started going, like I say, there were two clubs that we first started going to. So there was Brighton Beach. So I think we were both very lucky that Leeds, I mean, you used to come to Leeds a lot.
Yeah, because it was a mix between, obviously I was living in Leicester, but I was going back to Donny a lot because I had close friends there, so we were going off Leeds. I think if you talk about Brighton Beach, probably quite different for me and you, because for me I was going...
A little bit later.
No, not that, but... it's really hard to explain, isn't it? I guess it's kind of like you just go there, have a fun time.
Yeah.
You're not too worried about what people care about you. Do you know what I mean? You kind of don't really give that much of a shit.
Whereas...
But I guess if I then flick to when I started going out to the 100 Club, to the night scene, I think what really struck me when I went in there was because, how old were then? 22 maybe? I noticed that I was probably me and Matty, a couple of other people, maybe like Adam Torrell, and a few others, were the youngest people in there. And I could say, probably hold on my hand, there was probably like 3 to 4 people that were early 20s. Obviously, there was like the guys who all were into Northern and stuff in like 90s, so like they were kind of like 40 at that time. The kind of like people that we were meeting were like 40s, 50s, yeah. And, you know, South London crew. So yeah, I really noticed that I was, especially being a girl, because a lot of the other guys were lads. Guys were lads. A lot of the younger people were men. So I always found it quite like a whoa place to be, and to be in a club as well as a young girl that's full predominantly of men is quite an unusual thing. I'd say like the first few times I went, everybody was super, you notice quickly, super friendly when you then notice you weren't there to just be a dick, get pissed on a dance floor. So I think I did find people really welcoming. That's one thing that I really loved about the scene.
So you mentioned about obviously being one of the very few females, and I spoke in my last interview with Cher that the Northern Soul scene is very male dominated, and I just wanted to just talk a little bit more about that with you, because you know you with a group of lads, you know, going to the 100 Club. Like, how did you feel as a young female, and do you ever get like discrimination at all or anything like that, or is it kind of okay for you?
That's a really good question, actually, because I would say on terms of scenes and going out and stuff, it is, I always say, the safest scene. Like, you never get anybody cracking onto you or anything like that. You know, oh, that's, you know, which is always amazing. The only one thing I would say, sometimes, like the only thing I've ever had is if people talk about records and you chirp in. A lot of people tend to go, you know, I find that sometimes it can be like, oh, what do you think you're a woman, blah, 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 blah. But then you just be like, well, you know, I like this, and you just don't, you know, if you don't input as well, people are never going to listen to you. But yeah, never had anything like negative.
Yeah, do you know what? I totally agree with you there, and I've never made that point before, whereas in this is probably the safest scene where you could leave your drink out and not not worried that anything's going to get tampered with it. You wouldn't, you know, you could leave your bags about, and you just know you're in a safe environment.
Yeah, it's always super safe. It's like, I always think as a woman, like, you could travel the length and breadth of the country on your own, go to a do, you have no hassle. If there is any hassle, somebody tries to do anything to you, bloody hell, there's always someone there to step in. Like, because obviously, rare occasion, you know, being like a central London club or something, if anybody, there's always like people there who look after each other, which is amazing.
You spoke about a few events, so like the 100 Club and Brighton Beach. What would you say for your whole time on the scene? What was your favourite nighters? And I know you're going to answer 100 Club, so, but is there any others there that you could mention?
Do you know what I have to say? So, my first all-nighter was the Ritz in Manchester. There was something really special about the Ritz.
Oh, he's starting to cry.
I'm not. No, it's emotional because it's an all-nighter that doesn't exist anymore, and I had genuinely had some of the most incredible nights of my life on that dance floor. And I mean, I never went to Wigan, of course I was too young, but from what people say, it's the closest, you know, like people would ever go to Wigan. It was you'd have been too young to go. Did you ever go to the All Dayers when they brought it back?
No, I honestly never went to the Ritz. No. And honestly, when I used to work in Manchester, drive past it all on the train, we go past it. But yeah, never been.
It was around. I think I was still in Blackburn at the time, so I must have been 17 or 18 when I went to the Ritz. In fact, I tell you what, I was under 18 because I went with a aforementioned friend who gave me this tape. We went together. It wasn't really a thing, but my mum and dad wouldn't let me go on my own, so I had to go with somebody else. And I just remember sat on this balcony looking over at that, and I think I remember dozing off on this. They used to have these enormous like oversized sofas up on the balcony. It was perfect for falling asleep. And I think about 4 o'clock, I think I'm about falling asleep. Woke up again at 5 o'clock or something. But I just remember, and it's crazy. Of all the records that really stood out the night, and it's really cheesy. I mean, the whole of those records, and when I think about what records were probably being played that first time, I had no idea what any of these records were. It was also, and that was what's so great. Everything was completely alien, all of it. And I didn't even know the night either. But I just remember hearing that for the first time, thinking, "Fucking hell!" Like the bass rumbling through that place was just a really, really special sound. And you know, some of what Richard used to do with the rare nights, which is the first time I ever listened to Butch. And a lot of those rare soul DJs. Again, no idea what any of those records were, because in some ways I always, and I still do sometimes, I've always kept myself to myself. Do you know what I mean? I know different people on the soul scene go around to just has and the rest of it. I've always kept myself to myself very much in that regard. And because of that, kind of like a lot of these records just passed me by, you know.
As a kid.
Yeah. And, but, you know, some of the nights that, for example, like the originals live for Richard's 50th will still be probably one of the greatest nights I've ever had. You know, it's just the things that we saw and did there. In fact, we were talking the other day because
listened to it, didn't you?
Yeah, if you go on Spotify, that whole gig is on Spotify. The originals live at the Ritz.
Do you know what? I'll have to search for that, and we'll somehow put it on the link of the YouTube and make sure everyone can listen to that too, and you know, experience that memory with you. Because that just sounds, I'm just so jealous. It just, you know.
Sometimes when obviously it's like say, oh, so and so at this night and so at this night, and you're like, oh God, especially when them people aren't here anymore. It's like, yeah, I'm with you on that one, Charlotte. Sometimes you're like, oh God.
Yeah, I mean, do you know some really weird things, especially during like the late 90s, early noughties, and again, like I said, I was very lucky to be around Yorkshire at that point because you know Sheridan's used to have Lifeline in the small, and you know, obviously people who will be listening to this for the most part would have been at Sheridan's, which had a ceiling as small as this that used to drip sweat right onto us. You know, and then all of a sudden one night, you know, Sydney Barnes just popping up out of nowhere. And, you know,
what?
I've known Sid for a while because me and Sid kind of But that's another story you can talk about later if you want. But yeah, so like we had that. I remember.
But in terms of like main clubs and stuff that are impressionable, like a lot of, you just said Lifeline, but for me, I'd say Lifeline massively was a really, really great thing. And also, I get really bad brain fog.
What, rugby?
Yeah, I love a bit of rugby. It's amazing. And then
the thing at the boxing crew.
boxing crew.
Yeah,
sadly, I loved that, and I'm really sad that's gone.
Yeah, that was great, because for me, what Dave did was kind of like almost like 100 Club in the North. It was great for a lot of those people up there. It was a very different crowd, in as much as it wasn't a rare soul. For a lot of those people who went to that weren't a rare soul, because they followed different DJs, but because they were kind of forced in the same vicinity. And did you ever go to the box?
I went to the box, but I never went to it when Dave ran it. I know Jordan went to it, and they played a lot of modern actually, and Jordan spoke really highly of it. But yeah, I didn't manage to go to that one.
One thing that I really miss, and you never went, but was Wilton. Wilton was amazing. Wilton was such a brilliant place. It was just bizarre. It was on this mad little estate, little industrial estate, nothing else on there. And Wilton Ballroom was just great, because it was the time when Roger Banks was playing really, really incredible mid-tempo. I love Roger to
girly
bits,
stuff,
but really girly stuff. And me and Roger's girly stuff. It was the first time. Yeah, it was the first time I ever heard Lily Fields. It was the first time I ever heard "He's Good Enough for Me" by Patty Austin, and records that, which if you've ever seen me dance, those typically are the records that that really grab me. I mean, I love 100-mile-an-hour records, but my taste is mellow, and for me, that's what soul is about. So as a venue, it was a really special place, yeah, and really small and really intimate again.
But then sometimes I love a big venue as well. So it's like, it all depends your mood, doesn't it? Sometimes a little place, maybe like 50 people in it, it can be electric, and then you can't beat a big ballroom dance floor. So, that's when you like big floors at Stoke and stuff like that.
Yeah, Blackpool.
It's all, yeah. Amazing. I mean, I have to say,
you can't beat the majesty of that, can you?
Yeah. So it's,
So if you could describe the venue that you could, if you could design it yourself, like what would your your dream venue be like, and who would the DJs be? Tell me your favourite DJs too.
Sounds of the 100 Club at the Ritz.
Oh well, that seems like it was rehearsed. Like you knew the answer straight away there. So yeah, tell me more.
So like the majesty and the huge emotive dance floor of the Ritz, coupled with the sounds of the 100 Club. I mean, I'd be interested, but I don't know how well a lot of those sounds would work in that big space, but I'd like to.
Then on flip side of that, I have to say, Winter Gardens at Blackpool, because for me, it's absolutely beyond sport for choice. Yeah. Because you've got, I don't know, I love the pub because it's all about the bar.
You know them lass.
Yeah. You can get a pint and straight on a dance floor, but yeah, you've got people playing everything in there with no pressure to fill a dance floor. And then you can go into a massive, big, majestic ballroom with like 1,000 people dancing with floor shaking. So for me, it's like you can have a mix of everything. So that's quite amazing.
But then also, Cleethorpes on a Sunday night.
Oh, well, for an emotion, I think most weekenders on a Sunday night is an emotional thing, though, isn't it?
I don't know if you ever went, but everybody who's been at Cleethorpes, who's been in the distance, will say that Sunday night at Cleethorpes was. I mean, I haven't been for a few years.
That's because you're knackered, though. You've been dancing with your mates for 3 days. You've not been to bed properly, and you just want to have a cry.
Yeah. It is. It's that perfect heightened emotional state.
I know exactly what you mean, and I don't want to compare Prestatyn to Cleethorpes because I know they're totally different, but I know what you mean. Sunday, for me, like Jordan, Sundays he's like, I'm hiding, I don't want to see anyone, I'm tired, I'm grouchy, and I just want to sleep. And me, I'm like, I get this hyperactiveness from somewhere, and I just want to be and hug everyone and just enjoy the moment. And I love Sundays. Sundays are my favourite, so totally agree with you.
Somebody drop
with you on that.
Yeah, somebody will drop, like pyramid at about 10 to 2 on a 10 to 2 on a Monday morning at Clean Clubs, and just you're gonna explode and it's gonna start. It all gets very emotional.
That's lovely, isn't
That's what I listen to.
And this has been such a good chat, and I've still not gone through all my questions. I've still got loads to go, so I'm really excited to keep on talking. So me and Matt actually met. I think that's where we met. It was Move On Up in Leeds, and I know Matt. He gets the last coach from London to Leeds to DJ all night, and then gets the first coach home back to London, and that's where I first met you. And it's an incredible event. It's actually the world's longest going soul night or something. Am I right saying that?
It's the world's longest weekly soul night.
Yeah, that's right. And it's full of young people. So, the students all come in and they're dancing and they're bopping and they're really enjoying the music. So I just wanted to ask, like, how does that make you feel? It must make you feel incredible. It must make you feel really happy to know that there is a potential young audience there. Moving Up started in 1995. I started going as a punter from Huddersfield when I was a student in Huddersfield, about 97, halfway through 97, I guess. And then by which point I was really onto this. I was always a soul boy on the mod scene, okay. But I was collecting a lot of soul and R&B, and then I said to the guys, and I was again first in, last out every week. Do you know what I mean? 9 till 3, and then they asked me to DJ once in every 6 months, perhaps. And then I was still there. When it moved to the Hi-Fi Club, when the Town and Country Club, when the Underground shut down, they took me on as a full-time, by which point I had a much better record collection, and they asked me to go full-time, and by which point, that was 20 years ago now. In fact, and you've been doing it for 20 years, all this time. I bet you're missing it then during this lockdown.
It's funny because I don't know whether I've been thinking about giving it up for a long time because it's a big, as you know.
Because you don't go to bed, do you, on Wednesday and then you go straight to work?
But it is a labour of love, and I have to say, and I'm glad that I'm glad that you mentioned that, Charlotte, because seeing young people like you come through from it is really heartening. And it makes it. I have to say, sometimes I'm really tired on a Thursday morning, but it really makes it worth it because there are a number. There are a very small but influential number of people that, like you say, most people are students, and that's cool for me because and I'm sure you saw it. Perhaps you tell me, but being able to play things like Superstition next to the Majestics makes you realize how fantastic those records are. And there's it allows me every week to just remind myself how great those Aretha records are, how great those Stevie records are. Do you know what I mean? And not feel cheesy. I mean, don't get me wrong. I paid cheesy records because I've been part of the DJ. Sometimes that's what you got to do. But being able to push those little bits of Northern out, to people like yourselves and seeing your reaction to that makes, do you know what? It makes me feel very honoured to be able to do that because I realise, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I don't want to interrupt. You go.
It makes me feel honoured to have been able to have 20 years of pushing rare soul and classic soul music to young people.
No history behind the record, though. You always say, people don't know that it's rare record. They just hear the music and react to it with no association. So there's no
pretense. There's no pretense. You might not. To you and I, we might know an Aretha record and it's difficult. It has, like I say, when I first started DJing and I first started going there was a very soul was very much in the public consciousness. People knew Stevie Wonder records. People knew Aretha Franklin records. Well, it's not and they were on the radio a lot, and it's not the same anymore. So now, like, I will play perhaps a Stevie Wonder record that we've been battering, like every week, and and I know, and it's a tried and tested classic, but these kids don't know it. So when you play records like that, so they don't know the Stevie Wonder record, but also they don't know Spread Love by Al Hudson. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. What I found really amazing when I went was that it was just so nice to see an event that had no political agenda, like within soul politics, and sometimes that can be quite restrictive at a venue, or restrictive for a DJ, or restrictive for a dancer, because there's these politics, there's these like multi-genres within this blanket.
Yeah, I mean, I always saw it as a feeder club. Do you know what I mean? And I think there aren't enough feeder clubs because I was for 23, 24 years, I've been part of the northern soul scene, the rare soul scene, whatever you want to call it. But I always operated moving up outside of those circles because I didn't want, as a DJ and for what I wanted to promote for that club, I didn't want northern soul fans to latch onto it because I knew that there would be, an expectation from that from that section of that community, which I didn't want to kowtow to, and for me, it was about creating for me, it was always about the atmosphere. Do you know what I mean? When there are 300 kids in a room, the lights go down and we play Last Dance by Donna Summer, or we play Ain't No Mountain High Enough. And there's this singular moment where everybody gets together and the roof flies off the venue. And for me, that's what it was all about. It was about being able to ebb and flow and have the capacity to play records like Son of a Preacher Man next to, something else a little bit more rare, like, Bessie Banks or whatever.
Well, it's just to make people enjoy the night.
That's it. It was about seeing music for an enjoyment purpose. Like all those people made that music for.
Definitely. And it just shows how timeless soul music is, because obviously the old school boys, they enjoyed it in the 70s, you guys enjoyed it in the 90s, and now we're still enjoying it now in the 2020s. So
you're the guys. What's great about it is that you're the guys who should be, who are, not should be, but you are, giving it to a whole new generation. It was so nice to see.
And then I think as well on the, it keeps on extending. So, like, for example, there's so much new music coming out now being released, such as like on radio. There's Madlib and Gabriel's, and it's just, I think that will bring more like younger people as well to like the scene and to look into it and stuff like that. So, I think it's little tiny steps in it.
It is.
Yeah, and I think this is a great time to ask this question. I was going to ask this at the end, but because we're kind of on the subject now. I remember having a conversation with you, Matt, and I think it was at Rugby All Night, and I asked you, and I'm not going to say what your answer was now, because it could be totally different, but like how long, like with the state of the scene before lockdown, and I think maybe we could talk about how lockdown and COVID could impact on this now, like what do you think the future of the soul scene is, and do you think it will last? And
I said 10 years, didn't I?
I think you said 5 years, and that was the. I didn't want to embarrass. I didn't want to say the answer because it could be, it could have just been like just a passing mark. But yeah, I think you said 5 years, and that has stuck. That conversation stuck with me, and I remember talking to Jordan about it, and I said, Matt thinks there's about 5 years left, like, and I think, and I constantly, one of my things is like, how can we make sure that the scene still goes along?
It's an important thing, and I have the same thing, like the soul scene to me, and the going out and socialising, music, everything, when COVID's made me realise this is like, I would say probably one of the biggest parts of me being me, and enjoyment of life and everything like that, and what makes me feel happy. So the thought of that scene going absolutely terrifies me, but then I am a realist, unfortunately, a lot of people on the scene are slightly older, I would say 60s, mid-60s, 70s, and how long are people still going to want to be able to go out and things like that? So, obviously, I would say the big nighter scene, I would say, yeah, maybe 10 years. But then I think on the other side of that, you know, you've got everybody who's kind of like our age included, plus like 50s and stuff. I think nights will become smaller and more playing more genres, and there'll probably be more day events and things like that. So I don't think the scene's going to be 100% dead. You know, in like 10, 20 years, it'll still be here, but I think it'll be very different. And I think, you know, if I went forward, like if I went 20, 30 years, I imagine it'll probably be about 30, 40 of us going to Europe. Probably
the 8 of us rattling around in a room. I mean, you know, the great thing is that when you go to Europe, it is a much younger crowd. It is, for some reason, I don't know. But then I don't know whether it's the same thing as me or not. Do you know what I mean? Because, but it's like Faye said. Yeah, you know, it is absolutely everything that defines what I do. And I never thought about it in that way. It's, you know, my Wednesday nights and everything else have all been about soul. My weekends have always been about soul. But yeah, to be real about it, you know, it's like what we need to look at.
It's heartbreaking though, because all these people that you love and care about, the thought of them not being around absolutely terrifies me at times.
Yeah, but realistically, like we are, you know, most of your friends on the soul scene are just about sub 60, probably, if not a little bit older. So just the maths of that, do you know what I mean, is a really terrifying prospect for me, because if you think about all of our really deep, close friends
and people we've lost,
that's
like,
it.
I can't bear it.
If you've had, so sad. The people we've had to say goodbye to in the last 2 or 3 years, just, you know, who for the most part were a massive part of that scene. Do you know what I mean? People like we. Example, you know,
but you know, get upset. So.
Yeah, and it is.
I know. I'm trying not to cry, because, like, in the last 5 years, I've lost 3 of my closest friends, and you know, I brag about how some of my best friends are 50 years plus. Like, yeah, I'm going out with, you know, such a person, and yeah, I'm 57.
But how incredible is that? You know, that's one thing that I have to. Sorry, going off subject a tiny bit, but have to say about the soul scene is, you're in a room. Okay, you know, we talk about age and stuff, but it kind of doesn't matter, because it doesn't come into the equation really how old somebody is, because you're just on a mental journey together of loving music. Usually, you know, a lot of people, you'll have like similar thoughts in life and stuff like that. But I always say, you know, you're in a room with people, like, let's say I've known for like 15 years now, and some of them I won't know what they do for a job, but I'll know like the most intricate things in their life, and shared amazing times together, because all the other stuff's just superfluous, what people do for a living, their age, all that stuff, because you've kind of got a contact on it sounds cheesy, but a higher level. I don't know why. I don't know what you do.
It's true, because you're there for a completely different reason. You're not there because of how much money you earn. You're not there because of what job you do. You're not there because of what sex you are, what gender you are, what your predilections are in any other form of your life. You're there because you all have this connection, a very
music,
deep, passionate connection as well. You know, and that's what's really important to remember, is that the music that we listen to, and
it's sure very emotive.
It is. And that's the thing, is that, you know, house, and I'm sure people felt the same way in the house scene. Do you know what I mean? Because
it can be a moment where there's a song on you on dance floor, and literally, you can be crying my eyes out. And then you'll be like next to somebody else who's in a similar thing, and that kind of builds a connection, I have to say. It does.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, because there's this particular one moment that actually both of you were involved, and it was at the 100 Club, and I think it was the first time I went to the 100 Club, and I wanted to go for years. But obviously my partner's a DJ, and we were young, so we were too young and to travel and stuff. And finally, for I think it was my 25th birthday, I think. 25th birthday, I was like, yeah, we're going to 100 Club. I don't care what we're doing. We're going 100 Club. And I remember We're Not Too Young came on, and I was just like, and I got so overwhelmed that I couldn't feel my legs, and I must have looped like, I don't know, I don't know what I must have looked like. I must have looked something wrong, and I just felt so overwhelmed because I could see both of you dancing like really passionately, and then I could see all my close friends, and we're all just in sync together. Like it's like all our spirits just like combined. I don't know, and honestly, that was probably my most favourable memory ever, and I'm glad that you guys are there too. So
exactly.
But what's beautiful is that you can share that, and that's that's what people have found so difficult about lockdown.
Yeah.
And again, it's hard because we started doing the online-ers for the 100 Club, but to me, it's very difficult because to me the 100 Club is about us being in the same shared space.
Yeah.
I can listen. The records that Adie's been playing and all the rest of the guys are incredible, and it's amazing to hear that in your own home. But for me, it's about all of us being together, being able to hug each other, see each other cry, see each other dance. Do you know what I mean? And for me, and that's what for me was always amazing about the 100 Club, was that it was always that emotive place. Like 20 to 6 o'clock is my favourite part of the 100 Club. Do you know what I mean? There are, all those records, those last 10 records, which just tear your heart to pieces. Don't Tear Me Down, and the Benny Kings, and obviously Carla and all the rest of it are really emotive records. And like you say, it's amazing that we can share that. And it's difficult. I'm not saying there aren't, but I would like to see what other scenes do that. Between, because if you think about, and it's like Faye said about older people, we can be in the same room with Sam.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And Sam will DJ next to. In fact, it's funny because the first time I got a fly there, the first time I ever DJed the 100 Club was me and Sam, and it was billed as the young guy, like the young versus the old. Obviously, the old one because Sam's got much better records. But it was what was beautiful about that was the fact that I was probably about 23, I think, or 23, 24, the first DJ at the 100 Club.
Bill had been 70.
Yeah, and he must have been, he must have been,
60s,
must have been late 60s, And there is, I challenge you to find anywhere in the world, perhaps the reggae scene. Actually,
yeah, I'd say that.
Somewhere like the reggae scene.
Some low riding scene.
Yeah,
as well.
But you can bet your bottom dollar it's black music that does it.
Yeah.
Even if it's house, do you know what I mean? It will be black music.
Speaking of Soul Sam, like I totally relate to that. Like Soul Sam, you could walk past him on the street and think, oh bless him, he's such a sweetie. Like, but at night, especially when he gets behind those decks, he just suddenly transforms into something really youthful. Like
you have people going out more than like I'd say loads of girls I work with who were like early 20s. They go, what have you done this weekend? I'm like, I went to this, went to that, didn't go to bed, blah, blah, blah. And I think they go, oh, well, I just stayed in, had brunch, watched a lot of Netflix. And I think, bloody hell, I've been with people who are like 80 having it more than you. It's really
and I think that keeps us young.
It keeps people young.
It does, it keeps us young. Like if I think about it, I was always, for about 10 years, I was always the youngest person on the scene. Just for whatever reason. I mean, it's not testament to me. It was just that I was the youngest person in the scene, and then it was great that you guys came along because then I wasn't anymore. But what was amazing was that like all those people were always at least 20, 30 years my senior, but they were still out. They'd all been dancing for it's the same in and out, week in, week out, and they still do.
But why would you not?
Exactly.
It's your life, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
that's it. And that's what's so beautiful about it, is the fact that if it doesn't go away and it's still there, these people will just
still go.
Still go.
Well, as long as you're able to, you're still going to go, aren't you?
That's it.
So
I want to keep this conversation going because I'm just loving it. Honestly, my heart feels full of joy just having these conversations and talking about memories. And I don't know, I just feel like it's all coming back to me because I do feel a little bit numb with the scene at the moment, and this is just, it's making me miss it so much more. But I'm going to ask you a few more questions. I'm going to have to call it an end because we don't want to go over the hour mark. So Yeah, so last question. I just wanted to talk about 100 Club with you because I feel like you're like Mr. and Mrs. 100 Club a little bit, and I like if you're going to go 100 Club, we know you'll be there, and you have involvement with the promotion side of it, and you've got a good relationship with both Butch and Adi. So I just love to know more about it. You must feel honoured to be able to. It's probably one of the most prestigious all-nighters going at the moment and ever will be probably, and I just love to know more about it. And
I always laugh because I think we ended up doing it because we're only ones that don't drink and don't take drugs.
We're the only ones who are compass mentis enough at 6 a.m. to take the decks down.
So that's probably why.
Yeah. We are. It's difficult because I kind of. It's a big responsibility, and that doesn't it doesn't go unnoticed.
It's a privilege,
and we are extremely lucky. Like I say, I can genuinely count on probably one hand the amount of 100 clubs that I've missed in the last 21 years, and not because just because for me the 100 Club was always a really special club, and I'll tell you why. Because there were records there that I would never hear anywhere else. And that for me is what the 100 Club should always be. Yeah, I remember Gareth Sweeney saying it really succinctly once, and he was like, I go to the 100 Club because I want to listen to records that I can't listen to at home.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, and it's, all the DJs that have been part of it have been such a massively fundamental part of that club. But I think anybody who's ever DJ'd there or has been a resident there is also acutely aware that Adi and Butch are what define the 100 Club. Because Butch isn't interested really in DJing many other things. The 100 Club is what he does. And for Adi, it's his outlet for Kent. So we are extremely lucky as promoters that we have, two things on the soul scene. We have a man that literally spends his days finding new 60s and 70s soul records that nobody else has listened to, which is incredible. And we also have pretty much, I think, hands down, the man with the greatest soul music collection on the planet. So those two things in themselves, I think, is what is really important for me for the 100 Club.
And and I have to say, it's like the family feeling of it. I always like to say, it's a club that I always find it's like really family.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's hard for me to say because obviously I've been going there a long time, but it's always, obviously, you have your DJs, you have your, your dancers, your chin strokers, and and you have punters there. But I feel that people come there just to see people as well, not just for the music. It's a really weird layout of a club.
It is.
You're like, there's nowhere to hide. There's a stage dance floor, and then there's two ends where people just talk to each other.
Yeah, you're right. And it's a beautifully friendly club. And I
hope so.
It is, and that's what we try and promote. Like it's difficult because sometimes when
it's a bloody, if you're not from London it's bloody hard to get to. It's expensive. People up north to come down and things.
And we appreciate, and every single person that comes to that club we appreciate, because it's not like it used to be in the 90s where it was really cheap to get around, or you could stay all night, or you could catch, because the hours are different. Like when I first started going, it started at 1:05 and it went on to 8 in the morning. So 8 in the morning, you had perhaps an hour to catch to your coach or your train or whatever. But now it's really different.
To 6.
So, there are punters who come from Cornwall who, we will hang around with.
Keith. Scotland,
Unbelievable. Keith has to go back to Dundee, which is like nearly a 6-hour train ride back, and the rest. Do you know what I mean? Back up there. Which for me says how important it is. When I first went to the 100 Club, I was in Leeds still, and I used to travel. I would go on the coach through the night, and I'd come back again in the morning. But because there were records that I just couldn't hear anywhere else. In fact, the first record that I used to travel to, because you couldn't listen to it on your phone or a tape or anything, was Luther Ingram. Baby Don't You Weep, and because I was a mod at that point, and it was such an exciting record, and that for me was the draw, and that I hope is the draw for other people now, and it's difficult because people talk about Wigan and how influential it is, but I think it's very easy to understate what the 100 Club is on the soul scene. Do you know what I mean? And it's nothing to do with us, like it's testament to AD and Butch and all the other DJs around it, and the punters who've been coming since the 80s or since the 90s, who have created that really beautiful atmosphere. And the emotion, that for me is the emotion, being able to, like I said before, at like 5:30 till 6 o'clock, there is a real heightened emotion in the records that they play, and those records, originated there, and they I mean, it's interesting.
Like ending songs,
it's the end of songs, that are records that don't really get played anywhere else, in terms of, and a lot of the times can't be, because
it's like you can't listen to, Four Tops.
Yeah, anywhere else,
No, but like when it comes on radio, you don't think of anything else but them last 3 minutes with everybody on dance floor, like hugging and all that type of thing. So,
yeah.
It's like a place of worship, really, isn't it? I don't know, everyone makes that pilgrimage to the 100 Club. Like, I know for myself, my first time I went to the 100 Club for my birthday, there was about 8 of us in the back of someone's van, in a transit van, driving down to London, and then on the way back home, we got caught by the police, but that's a different story. We were fine, we got let off, but yeah, it was just, it is like, for me, if I can get there, I will get there when I can, and I've only been, 3-4 times now, and I think it's one of the most special clubs ever, like one of the best experiences I've ever had, and the thing that makes me want to go is I know for a fact I'll go there and I'll hear stuff I've never heard of before. And
that's so great to hear, because that really is what we tried to provide at the 100 Club. For us, it's about that emotive experience. There are some amazing northern clubs across the country.
God, yeah.
There's some incredible clubs, but for me, what we try and do with the 100 Club is that we try and make it a family where we can listen to the most emotive and the emotive soul music that we can.
And it's a place for people to come and, I guess, play pretty much what they want without a fear of having to fill a dance floor.
Yeah.
I think that's like an important thing. Like, it doesn't matter. Even, I always giggle, like somebody, you could have Butch on and he'll play like a tune or fill a dance floor, then next one there might be like 2 people dancing to it, but it don't matter.
Yeah.
It's not about having to fill it, is it?
No.
It's about the sharing and the enjoyment of rare music, I guess,
Yeah, you're right. And I kind of, when we took it over, I mean, we were so lucky when AD asked us, to do it. And I think he said to me he invited me around one day, and he said, do you want to, how do you feel about because he'd never had a night off. People forget about this. People forget that in nearly 40, we're at 41 now, well, 42, because we missed this last one. But so for nearly 36 years, he never had no night off, which is unbelievable. I mean, like, what a testament. Like,
it's incredible.
DJs had come and gone, but for 40, best part of nearly 40 years, he never had and I think that's what he wanted. I think what he wanted was a night off.
Just one.
That's why he asked me.
Just one.
Just one night off. And he asked me, and he said, "Do you want to put a night on?" I said, "All right, okay." And I had a guy called Red Greg.
Is that fair one?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, a guy who he's actually a house DJ, but he was also a disco DJ, but also had incredible. I knew he had fantastic taste in soul records, and he didn't have enough outlet to play them. Now I couldn't afford to book him. He's huge. Check him out. He's amazing. Some of the best disco and soul, modern soul mixes you'll ever hear. He was the same guy who played Love Tempo uncovered at the same time that Butch was playing it covered up. So that says everything about his music taste. But and he asked me to play it, and it went really well. Touch wood, thankfully, we made our money back, and everything was great. And I think from that point on, he kind of trusted us. I hope he trusted it. But it is difficult, It is difficult, kind of expect it, because we don't expect people to come back Like we can't, you know, we can't expect people to come back week after week, which is why, you know, we have to go out and flyer it. And especially when it's interesting, we go to places like Stoke, isn't it? When we kind of, you know, because I don't.
Especially you, because I always giggle. I'll be like, right, okay, let's go somewhere and take some flyers. You know, I'm going out anyway. I might like, right, I'll go and hand them out. And I always like, you go to cousin and hands them out, don't you? Because you like to talk to people about the club rather than leave them on table. I'm like,
I think it's really important. I think it's really important because some people have been, some people haven't been. And if they have been, I really want to know what you think about it. You know, we are, you know, we're not, you know, as the 60s isn't above itself in, you know, like we are the gods and we are the be all and end all. That's not how it works. You know, we understand people have different tastes and you know, we are reactive to that. You know, we understand that everybody has the same tastes and that everybody feels the same about it. And some people haven't been, but still have, you know, bad things to say about it. And I'm like,
that's cool.
Yeah, and that's fine. You know, we're all into different types of music, and that's what's so incredible about this scene. But all I would ask, you know, all I ever ask is people go once. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Do you know what I mean? I get it. I understand.
I totally agree with you there. And I think for me, music, especially in the soul scene, it's like a progressive journey. Like, and I think most young people have gone through the journey where it's the commercial soul nights, and then you gradually, and if you're truly into it, you gradually make your own journey and you delve into these different sides, like the 70s side of it, the modern, rare, crossover, and all of it, and you get into this, like, I don't know, this blanket of soul music, and for me, I couldn't say. I've always said this. I said I could dance all night at a funk event, but then again, I could dance all night at a 60s, you know, Wingsino event, and that's my journey for me, because I'm lucky enough to have gone through that journey, and it really does. It gets me very angry when people are like, oh, it's all rare, it's full of snobs and stuff. Well, like, actually, just try it, like. You know, I don't know, but that's just me. But it's a great technique. Actually, I do that when I'm flyering. I actually give it out because I like the older generation to know there are young people on the scene, and I don't know, I just want to show my face a little bit and say, look, this is what the young people are doing, give it a try, and I think that's very important.
Yeah, I think it's important that people see a face behind a club. Do you know what I mean? It's like I can pick up a million flyers for a club, but I won't always know who's promoting it or whatever. But you know, people say that, oh, you know, oh, you know, you're listening or whatever. But I'm not, you know. But it's only because I put myself in people's faces, whether they like it or not.
plus, no, it's nice, you know, like to ask to find out a little bit about it. Cause I'm always like, oh, what's on that night, music and stuff like that, politics.
That's it. And we'll always be really honest, you know. Like, ask me if you've never been, and I give you a flyer for it, and you're curious about it. Ask me a question. Do you know what I mean? That's what we're here for, as promoters. Yeah. Like, that's what you're there for. You're there to answer questions. You know, I remember being at Stoke and somebody was like, so, you know, like, what's it like? And I was like, well, I said, you know, so I'll be honest and say some people love it and some people don't like it. I said, but come down, you know, just once. If you like it, come back. You know, if it fucking changes your world, which is what we want it to do, you know, come back, you know, be an evangelist, you know, but because it's like church, you know, it is, I bet. But also if you don't like it, that's cool. Like, you can't take that to heart, you know, like, you just understand that
everybody's got their own taste.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, it'll be boring if we all had the same cup of tea, wouldn't it? And that's the perfect saying for it. So now I'm going to finish off with a bit of a fire round, because I just don't want to go over time and just make it nice, you know, a nice length. So fire round, we've touched a bit on it anyway throughout. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and you've got to answer quite quick, okay?
Each or
right? Each, both just fire it at me, okay? So the first question is, who's your favourite DJ?
Oh, I have to go that one first. Can't choose one.
You give me a couple if you want. You don't need to pinpoint one person.
Dobson. I'm going to go for Maria.
Yeah, well, actually, I
love a bit Maria.
Yeah, I'll go for Mr. Dobson, and then I'll have to say Arthur.
Oh.
Yeah, I agree. Arthur Fenn, he's beautiful. But okay, so favourite venue?
I'm going to say the 100 Club.
Are you?
Yeah, I am.
I'm gonna go Winter Gardens.
Okay.
Do you know what? I totally agree with both of them. They're in my top 5 for sure. Okay, your favourite record, all-time favourite record.
No way!
Yeah.
You gotta be quick.
I
can't.
Favorite. Oh my god, that's Catmull's Pigeons, isn't it?
I can't choose one actually.
How can you possibly choose?
Depends what mood I'm in. I can't. I've got to step away from that.
No, I mean, I tell you what. Old Town Lover. Old Time Lover by Martha Jean Love.
Beautiful record. Beautiful record.
That will always destroy me. Always destroy me no matter what.
Okay, so the record you hate the most, one that makes your ears bleed.
It's a difficult one, this. Danse à la musique.
I knew you.
Right. Don't get it.
I get it.
I try to think which one I hate. I'm still on which one I like. I was going to choose for my life, and I was going to choose Fluorescent Smog.
Okay, yeah, actually, All My Life.
All My Life was my number one. God.
Records that you hate, yeah.
I'd say any that sound like, I always call it clown music, which is really bad, but it's usually like an instrumental that just goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
So I love,
hate instrumentals.
Yeah, instrumentals. I agree with you. I appreciate like the musicians and everything back to it, but like behind it in the actual, the session band and things like that. I love listening all about that. But as a dancer's perspective, I love singing when I'm dancing, and I love singing those heart-wrenching words, and I just want to, do you know what I mean? And I usually the instrumental versions, I'm usually singing the vocal version anyway. So
it's funny because sometimes I'll play an instrumental and I'm like, yeah, and I'll start and then I'll just sit down.
I'm like, what are you doing?
If it's the instrumental of a vocal take, I'll just sit down. I'm like,
me and my mates, especially me, like if Paul Lawrence, for example, we'll be on dance floor, be like, I know this is instrumental version 5, 4, and I'll do a countdown to wait for him to walk off.
Oh dear. Oh, right. So your Northern Soul pet peeve?
Jesus.
Nowhere toilet roll in ladies' toilets.
Oh my god.
No, pet peeve is.
Pet peeve.
Oh, this is tough.
It is really tough. Sorry, this isn't as quick as you wanted, is it?
No, it's not.
Hey, what's my pet peeve?
I think sometimes mine would be if somebody cuts the record off early.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody's DJing, sometimes they'll lift it off. I mean, I can be a nightmare because I like a good 12-inch mix.
Yeah.
But sometimes people.
I love that. Can I have that as well?
No, I think that's a great answer. Like, I think my biggest pet peeve is when you're dancing and someone taps you on your shoulder and you're like, how dare you interrupt me dancing? I mean, Joe, you're just about to, I don't know, and then...
Drink on the There we go.
There we go. Okay, so last one, and we'll end it on a nice positive, is your favourite memory on the soul scene. I think you touched on it at the Ritz.
Mine would be, I could say I'm out dancer. I love dancing. I love that feeling, dancing on dance floor. But I would say probably best memories are just at a weekender, day do's, love them. And I'd just say when you were people who stay in like caravans or hotels chatting and all that type of stuff, I think that probably for me.
That's not mine, actually.
What's yours?
Cleethorpes 2000 and something. Just seen Dean Parrish play for the first time. I'm in tears. He's just played. I'm on my way. I walk off the dance floor straight into Dave Godin.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And I just lost it. I fucking lost it. I just like, and a friend of mine actually, it's a really beautiful old mod. He used to come every year at Cleethorpes, and he said, Matt, have you met me friend Dave? It's like, this is Matt, and it was just like,
is that photo you've got?
Yeah, somewhere I've got a photo, and there's like the two Daves, and me in the middle, fucking weeping like this.
Wow, that is a very special moment. Thank you so much. I've just really, truly loved listening to your memories, your stories, and I don't know, I'm so excited to get back on the dance floor with you two, honestly.
Fingers crossed we'll see you somewhere on the dance floor soon.
I know, I can't yet, too emotional.
Right, so thank you so much everyone for tuning in today. If you'd like to subscribe to the Soul Archive, just go on the link below, and thank you very much to Matt and Faye.